So again, the first four fights on the card, or I guess the final four fights on the card, it was Cub Swanson defeating Artem Lobov in a 5-round decision. You had Ally Quinta knocking out Diego Sanchez in the first round. You had OSP with another one of his Von Flue chokes. We can call it a Von Flue choke or a Von Prue choke. I guess whatever you want to call it now at this point, it's known as a Von Flue choke though. And you also had Eddie Wineland being defeated by John Dodson via decision. The other fights on the card, you had Joe Lozon versus Stevie Ray. Lozon came out looking really strong in this fight. It seems like he blew his wad after the first round, though. He was able to get Stevie Ray down, controlled him from the ground. Ray was good enough to kind of defend himself from a lot of submissions. Did get his guard passed a few times, gave up some pretty bad positions, gave up some 4-point positions, which again, if you don't compete in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a 4-point position would be mount or the back. But overall, by the end of that round, he looked pretty exhausted. You'd have to give that round to him 10-8. The next round, Ray was pretty dominant on the feet. Now, Lozon did get him down, but when he was on top, he was just kind of trying to hold him there and catch his breath. So that's a fair round to give 10-9 to Stevie Ray. So you're looking at the third round where if it's another 10-9, Ray probably this fight probably goes to a draw. And Ray was even more dominant with his boxing. He didn't throw any kicks to risk getting taken down. It was scored 10-8 on a couple of the judges' scorecards. I don't see a problem with that being a 10-8 round. So in the end, that's how the fight went. Stevie Ray got the decision despite losing the first round 10-8. And it's a big win for him. This is his first fight in America. I believe he's 5-1 in the UFC now. But Lozon's a big name for him to beat. Even though Lozon doesn't appear to be what he used to be, he's still a really talented fighter, still a very talented grappler. Even if Lozon's chin gets to the point where it's diminishing, his grappling is still improving. And to be able to, granted, he certainly didn't look great on the ground, but to be able to survive and keep your wits about you, keep your energy about you, and for you to be the one who's in the position where you're getting pounded on in the first round, and to have the guy who is on top to be the one who's exhausted and not you, that's a good sign for Stevie Ray. So hopefully he'll get another fight against a top guy. Hopefully this time it's a top 15 guy instead of a guy like Lozon where he's got a big name but not exactly a big ranking. And then for Lozon, he's obviously a very exciting fighter. He's obviously still capable of fighting. He's never really been a guy who's been that close to title contention outside of, I believe he was in contention after he had knocked out Melvin Gillard, but then lost to Anthony Pettis quickly after and never really got close to the title picture again. So he's right about where he's always been. I don't know at what point he feels he needs to stop fighting, whether it's once he gets really chinny or what it is, but for him, with his name, with his background, you can always put him in another fight against a guy, whether it's an up-and-comer or whether it's just a fight where you're looking to come up with an exciting matchup to put on a main card. Lozon will still be available for that. Next fight was Jake Ellenberger versus Mike Perry. Ellenberger actually looked really good in this fight. I would say he won the first round. Really good head movement, but man, between the fights he's had in the past and the fact that he's training with guys like King's MMA where they spar really hard, it seems like his chin has really taken some hits over the years, and it just felt like when this knockout happened, the punch that dropped him, the left hook, again, Mike Perry hits very hard, so it's hard to say that it wasn't a terribly hard shot, but it didn't look like the type of shot that normally puts someone on the ground and it put him down. But then once they were clinched up, once they were getting to that break, it felt like it took 5 seconds. It was probably just like 1 second, if not less. But like on that break, we were just waiting for Perry to throw a right, and I guess for whatever reason, whether Ellenberger's hand wasn't able to get in the way or what happened, wasn't prepared for it. Perry decided to throw an elbow there and put him out viciously. Ellenberger was not moving for a long time, and it's kind of frustrating as a fan to watch it on TV and just be like, hey, can you at least like get the camera over to Ellenberger? I want to know that he's okay. And they never showed him again, but it's obviously he's still alive. He went to the hospital, got discharged, and has a 60-day suspension, which is fairly standard for a knockout. But at this point for Ellenberger, I don't know what you really want to do with him. It doesn't seem like a title run's going to be in his future, and the path to get there is going to be through some heavy hitters, and you don't want to see something like this happen again. So hopefully he's in a place financially where he can maybe take 1 or 2 more fights if he even needs to at this point and be ready to move on with his life. And for Mike Perry, it's a big win for him. It's a win over a ranked fighter. I think from a technical standpoint, he didn't really... I don't know that I would say that Mike Perry is a better fighter, but at this point his chin's better, his punching power is better, and that's what got him the win there. With the fight with Alan Jouban, he fought another guy who was more skilled than him. Jouban didn't go down quite as easily, obviously, and Joe Ban got the win. I don't know that I see Mike Perry as a guy who's going to be a title contender necessarily, but he's going to give some of the guys who are kind of floating around in the middle some trouble. So at this point, you probably want to start looking around like the back half of the top 10, but I don't know that I see him as a really dangerous threat to the best guys and the more technical guys. Looking at some of the other fights on the FS2 prelims, Talis Leites beat Sam Alvey. Leites hadn't had a win for quite a while. He was actually looking really good. Almost got himself into title contention. He had a fight with Michael Bisping, where I believe he lost that one 3-2. It was a really close fight. But ever since then, he's just been on a slide. Sam Alvey, I mean, he just kind of is what he is. You had Brandon Moreno versus Dustin Ortiz. Moreno's really impressed me a lot. Now, granted, his one fight in the house in the Ultimate Fighter was against Pantoja, who was the number 1 seed, and it was a close fight. But for him to do as well as he has ever since joining the UFC, and for him to be a top 10 fighter heading into this fight and to beat a guy who's also a top 10 fighter, that's a really big sign for him. I don't think he's ready for a guy like Mighty Mouse yet, but he's showing improvements. He's getting better every fight. He's training with a good group of guys. He's training with Cejudo. And I think he's a guy who you're going to have to watch out for in a division that's really been lacking contenders for a while. He's going to be a guy who could potentially find his way in there in a year or so. Scott Holtzman defeated Michael McBride. Jessica Penne lost a decision to Danielle Taylor. Alexis Davis won a decision against Cindy Dandois. You had Brian Barberena getting another win against Joe Proctor. And on the first fight of the card, Hector Sandoval knocked out Matt Schnell.